Satisfy your need for happiness through your own curiosity with the Ranveer Show. You requested that we bring up the yantra again because there was something you wish to explain.
I wanted to explain to you that any geometric drawing, particularly something like this, which is has consonance with the Fibonacci sequence, with the golden ratio, for example, it does something to the structure of one's brain. And looking at the Shri Yantra actually activates the pineal gland. The pineal gland is a small endocrine gland which is located literally between our eyes. And that's why we also call this the Agnya chakra, which is why we wear the bindi to protect it. Now, what is the role of the pineal gland? When we say the Shri Yantra activates the pineal gland, what does it do? The pineal gland is responsible for the production of melatonin, and in small measures, it produces DMT. DMT is dimethyltryptamine, which is also known as the spirit molecule. It is what gets activated when you do an ayahuasca, when you do anything which brings about an altered state of consciousness. Like, for example, people with a near death experience. So the pineal gland actually just releases a little bit of DMT at that time. And many times after I wrote this book on the Shri Yantra, a lot of people reached out to me and said this was the last thing they saw, this image, this geometry, before they went under anesthetic, when as the anesthetic took, kind of effect. This was the image, and they didn't know what it was. And it was only when they saw this, they said, oh, this is exactly what we saw. So, this in a way is a portal to altered consciousness because it is changing the structure in your brain. There is something called neuroplasticity, right? So this brings about neuroplasticity. That is why it is very important to meditate on the Shri Yantra. So that
Simply looking at it
even
causes.
just looking at it brings about a change in the structure of the brain.
Okay.
Many people will ask, there's 2D and there's 3D, which is the more powerful version. There's a lot of study which has gone into this, and I think there was a Russian scientist who discovered that the two-dimensional version, which is engraved on copper, is the most potent one because he did an experiment where he germinated certain seeds. And the seeds which were placed before the 2D version were 2 times longer in terms of the germination. It is that potent, it is that powerful a symbol. And we've had it for about 12,000 years in our culture. And there are still very many people who are not even aware of it.
Yeah. I mean, I learned about it through the show. And my first thought was, where has it been for the previous 29 years of my life? Like, why have I not heard of Shri Yantras? Why is it not spoken about that much?
Because it is so powerful, it could be used for the wrong reasons. It's like with Tantra as well, there's a lot which can be done, with the black magic aspect of it, the Vamachara aspect. It's the same with yantras as well. It gives you so many siddhis when you're able to traverse that journey from the Bhupura to the Bindu, that you suddenly become a healer. If you've done a certain number of the practices, you suddenly become a healer. Then you start manifesting, you become a manifestation machine, because these are all the different avarnas. So as you cross each avarna, the kind of siddhis that you acquire can give you immense powers. So that is why the gurus, the rishis, have tried to keep this knowledge hidden.
How do you even begin to meditate upon it? There are particular practices.
Yes. Initially, just to look at it and to understand it is very important, to understand the meaning of each symbol within the symbol. So, what does the bindu stand for? What does this triangle stand for? First, understand that there are 9 avaranas. So, avarana means it's like, the Maya that we are talking about, it's like the veil. Each avarana is a veil. So, there are 9 veils which slowly get removed. So by the time you reach the center, all the 9 veils over your illusion have been removed and you become one with the divine consciousness. So as you lose yourself into divinity, you start becoming more and more powerful. And all the synchronicities, all the serendipities start coming into action. and you start seeing the deeper meaning of this life. And spiritual practice is about two things. One is abhyasa and one is vairagya. Abhyasa, we said, is practice. What is vairagya? Vairagya is detachment. Now, in detachment, it's not the kind of detachment where there are four kinds of detachments, which we have to discuss briefly in order for people to not misconstrue what detachment means. So, the first kind of detachment is, the what is called prasava vairagya, which means only a mother feels this when she gives birth. So now it's called postpartum depression and all of that. She questions, why did I bring another being? I went through so much pain. It's a temporary thing. Then there is something called smashana vairagya, which is when you lose a near one, you lose a loved one, and you go to the cremation, and you realize, is this all there is to life? That ultimately this is how we are all going to end up. Again, a very temporary state of detachment. You feel like, oh, you know what? All my dreams, all my aspirations are just really not that great comparatively. Then there is a third kind of vairagya, which is called Markata vairagya, which is like a monkey detachment. This is very common among so called spiritual people. They say, oh, I'm so detached. I don't care about, this. I don't bother about which car I'm driving. It doesn't matter to me. But actually, they're deeply bothered. But it's just like a pretend vairagya, a pretend detachment. And the fourth kind of vairagya is something called, is like when something is not coming to you. So there's this girl that you love, for example, she's not, reciprocating. So you say, oh, I don't even love her. So it's okay. I don't need to have her. Abhava vairagya. So these are the four kind of vairagyas you have to look out for, because that is not what detachment is. Detachment means being a part of this journey called life, but staying on the periphery and just being a witness and surrendering to whatever is happening to us. Not in terms of a fatalistic, deterministic way, but in a way where it's a stoic acceptance of everything, knowing that ultimately some good will come out of all of this.
So you're saying that these are the kind of detachments you need to avoid.
To look out for. I wouldn't say avoid, but do not confuse real vairagya with these four kind of vairagyas which we just mentioned.
What is real vairagya then?
Real vairagya means you just be like the bubble on the lotus leaf. You just exist, acceptance of everything that comes your way, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, because that's what Tantra is. It's about acceptance of everything. Everything that exists is divine. So even the pain that we feel, the grief that we feel, it is there for a reason. So real detachment means you are equanimous regardless of the situation. So people, in a traffic jam, there's no need to get angry because there's a reason for it to happen. In any situation, if you find that equanimity, that is true vairagya. That is detachment from this world. Whereas you're still enjoying life, you're loving the pleasures of the food that you eat, or the experiences that you have, nothing to stop you from all of that. But don't relate it to your inner core being. Your Sachidananda is beyond all of that. The bliss that you feel is not determined by any external circumstance.
What about the abhyasa side of Shri Yantra
Yes.
practice?
So the simplest way to practice with the Shri Yantra is to start by meditating on the Shri, just a simple black and white diagram, 12 by 12 inches. Take a printout and start looking at it for about 3 or 4 or 5 minutes.
That's it.
To begin with. And then you introduce the mantras one at a time. So you start with a very simple Bala mantra, which is Aim Kleem Sauh.
I'm Kleem Sahu.
Sauh.
Sau.
S-A-U-H. I'm Kleem Sauh. And then you reverse that and make it I'm Kleem Sauh, Sauh, I'm Kleem. So it goes on like that, So that's the first mantra. And then slowly it will start coming to you. What comes next? What comes next? And then you reach a point where you start learning the Lalita Sahasranama. It'll come. It's just a matter of time.
It's as simple as that.
Simple as that. Very, very simple.
The knowledge reaches you once you begin this meditative practice.
Yes.
So you know what chant to do at the next level?
It will come to you from someone that you know, some other sadhaka. You're just in a simple discussion with someone. That's how it came to me. And most of the sadhakas that I know, that's how they've learned it. Someone somewhere, you're talking about the Shri Yantra and they say, oh, have you heard this Khadgamala? And then so you go back and listen to the Devi Khadgamala, which is a description of the entire Shri Yantra with where all the yoginis are placed. So there are 64 yoginis, where all the Chausat yogini, where all they're placed and what is their role in creation, in Shruti, Sthiti, Laya, all of that. So slowly, it becomes like an evolution until you reach a point where you start doing the Lalita Trishati and you reach the Shodashi mantra, which is the 16-syllable mantra. That is like the pinnacle of Shri Vidya Sadhana. And then after that, it becomes internal. You don't need to practice it anymore.
And you shouldn't jump to this level at the start.
You cannot. Unless you go through the different processes. It's like you can't go from kindergarten to a PhD. There's no possible way to do it unless you traverse the path of, do your, grade 10 and then that kind of. It's exactly the same thing. It's like a graduation process.
Roughly at the start, how much time do you need to give it? That's how a lot of listeners
right.
also think.
Yes. To start actually seeing a difference in your own life in terms of becoming a manifestation machine, it takes about 2-3 years. But to reach a stage where you overcome even the desire to manifest and not become egoistic, because many people fall off the bandwagon when they become egoistic. They have acquired some amount of powers when they've started to manifest the good things and the bad. Someone rubs them wrong, they're like, okay, let something happen to him, and it actually happens. That goes to their head. And that ego brings them down again. It's like snakes and ladders. And then you have to start all over again. So if you do not allow your spiritual ego to come in the way and think that you've become this very evolved person, then about 6 or 7 years, I think you will reach a point where it becomes an entirely internal practice.
What about on the daily? Like how much time do you have to give it daily?
At the height of one's practice, I would say about an hour and a half.
And at the start?
Even 5 to 10 minutes is good. Because I think at the beginning, one has to start in small doses because it's difficult to commit to a longer period of time. When at the beginning, you're still trying to figure out a lot of things. You're also in, daily routine. You have to go about ensuring that all your obligations are fulfilled, because one of the main things in Sri Vidya is that you have to fulfill all your responsibilities as a householder, as a grahastha. You have to make sure that you leave no stone unturned to make sure everyone in your family around you are happy, comfortable, and only then can you aspire to become a spiritual sadhaka.
If you enjoyed today's clip, make sure you check out these curated playlists that we've made especially for you related to the subject that was spoken about in this clip.